Welcome, foolish mortals, to another episode of the HitchHiking Hosts Show 101. I am your host, your ghost host, West Truth, and I am back this week with another history episode. Well, where are we headed back to in our time-traveling doom buggies this week? Back to Disneyland 1957. We have some unfinished business there. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about one of the shortest-lived attractions in Disney park history. If you got to ride this, you were pretty lucky. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about a ride that was in both Tomorrowland and Fantasyland, depending which route you took, because we are going to discuss the Viewliner. When the Mickey Mouse Club Circus left the fringe of Fantasyland, it left a humongous empty space in the area. Walt Disney did some brainstorming and tried to figure out what would work in the space. He came to the conclusion that since the Disneyland Railroad was such a success, and trains were a fairly cheap attraction to add to the park, he'd add another train. Walt also knew that the train would be a short-term attraction, as it would be replaced when a better form of transportation could come to the park. Disney gave Imagineer Bob Gurr the task of creating a train that would represent the future of railway travel with a train of the future. Gurr developed an engine from a narrow-gauge miniature train which was inspired by the General Motors 1955 Aero train. Gurr planned to build 2-scale replicas of the Aero train and made a few small changes to their designs, including a different idea for the headlights, as well as streamlining the sides of the passenger cars with channeled chrome that would run the length of the train. Gurr built the engines using Oldsmobile Rocket V8 gasoline engines and the parts from two 1954 Oldsmobiles. Other parts of the vehicles also furnished the windscreen, doors, and instrument console for each of the two 5,000-pound locomotives. The passenger cars for the trains were built by outside vendors. There would be 2 separate trains for the attraction as well as 2 different tracks. One could be boarded by guests at a station in Fantasyland and the other in Tomorrowland. The engines and the top of the passenger cars were painted in matching colors. The Tomorrowland train was red, and the passenger cars were named after planets, while the Fantasyland train was blue, and its cars were named after different Disney characters. The train would reach speeds of 30 miles per hour, which would be equivalent to 120 miles per hour in a full-scale train, which gave the attraction the nickname of the fastest miniature train in the world. The train would travel along a dog-bone track circuit, rail line with a turnaround loop at each end, through parts of Tomorrowland and Fantasyland. The new attraction became known as the Viewliner and officially welcomed its first passengers on June 26, 1957. The morning of the premiere of the Viewliner, Bob Gurr was still putting out fires on the attraction. For the inaugural trip, the band played while Walt jumped in the engine and drove off, with Gurr in a new uniform that had been sewn together the night before. Both trips you could take on the Viewliner offered a different experience. The Fantasyland Viewliner wove around the hills of Fantasyland, giving riders a great view of the Storybook Land canal boats, the Skyway, and the Fantasyland Autopia attractions. The Fantasyland station was found in the rear of Fantasyland, near the Storybook Land canal boats. If you went on the Tomorrowland Viewliner, you'd race over the lagoon, past the Tomorrowland Autopia, and travel alongside the Disneyland Railroad, before returning to the waterfront where the Tomorrowland station sat. Both Viewliners had open windows and gave guests a unique look at different sites in the park. As everyone involved with its creation knew, the Viewliner's time would be short, and soon before some major construction would begin in Tomorrowland, the Viewliner would take its final trip on September 15, 1958, when it closed for good. With its 14-month lifespan, the Viewliner is one of the shortest-lived permanent attractions in theme park history. Both tracks of the Viewliner were removed, and the railroad ties would find themselves used in the backyard of Disney animator Ollie Johnson's vacation home for his backyard railroad. Construction soon began on the area, which would bring us the famous attractions of the Matterhorn bobsleds, the submarine voyage, and the Disneyland monorail. The Viewliner's Fantasyland station turned into part of the plaza in front of It's a Small World, and the Tomorrowland station has now become the area between the Matterhorn bobsleds and the Tomorrowland Terrace. While the Viewliner had a very short run at Disneyland, those who had the chance to ride it certainly have bragging rights over many other theme park aficionados. Alright, well that's the show. I'll be back with another episode very soon, as well as another Hitchhiking Host Show where we'll talk about what went down in the Disney parks with the trending topics. But until then, don't forget to subscribe right here on YouTube. YouTube.com/HitchHostShow. Like the show on Facebook, Facebook.com/HitchHostShow. Follow on the Twitter at HitchHostShow. And if you want to listen to the show, or you are listening to the show, do so over on Podbean, HitchHostShow.podbean.com, or search under West Troop or the Hitchhiking Host Show on Stitcher or iTunes. Until next time, don't forget to
hurry back
for the next episode. See ya.